Possibly all of us have admired an artist who did something questionable, or we have appreciated a work of art for its context and its author without truly understanding or assigning meaning to the work. But how relevant is the author to the appreciation of their art? At first glance, it may seem trivial. We might assume, for example, that knowing an artist's personality, inclinations, ideas, etc., is important when it comes to understanding the meaning or value of a work. However, this is not the case for everyone. The relevance of the artist in art has been debated for many decades. It's not something that just emerged with Kanye West or Woody Allen. It is a very complex issue. In the mid-20th century, a highly influential movement emerged, advocating that the interpretation of a work should be limited solely to its objective qualities, ignoring any external factors related to its author. The presumed error of assuming that the value of a work can be determined by similar factors is known as the intentionall fallacy. Introduced by Wimsatt and Beardsley, key figures in new criticism, it emphasized that poems and texts should be considered self-sufficient entities, with their meaning derived solely from the words themselves. Once published, the work becomes public, and no one, including the author, holds exclusive authority over its interpretation. At times, it is challenging to accept this idea, and we sometimes fall into small contradictions with opinions influenced by bias. For example, stating that the controversial personality of Dali is not important when evaluating his art, but agreeing that his intentions and feelings matter when appreciating his art. Or for instance, if someone who has been a millionaire their entire life writes a book on how to overcome poverty, it is somewhat valid to assume that their work lacks validity. After all, how can a millionaire know what it's like to emerge from poverty? But what if the book is genuinely good and provides genuinely useful information? In that case, does the author matter? Here, we encounter another slippery slope. We can make the mistake of falling into an ad hominem fallacy, where instead of addressing the argument, we irrelevantly attack the person making it. The acceptance of the intentionall fallacy brings forth other implications, some seen as positive, others as negative. Let's suppose a forger creates a perfect Picasso, where no expert could find any difference between the forged and the original. Each brushstroke is impeccably identical. We often underestimate copies, no matter how good, as they are not the work of a master, only a lower value imitation devoid of originality or creativity. But if we separate the work from its origin, wouldn't these considerations lose their value? A cynical philosopher might tell you that preferring the original over the imitation is a mix of fetishism and greed, not an act of appreciating art. Now, let's consider a scenario where a renowned artist places a bucket of water and a mop in a prestigious gallery. Then, the janitor arrives and positions his bucket and mop in a way that is millimeter perfect, identical to the artwork. In this case, the value of the work lies in the artist's process of choice and arrangement. But if we only consider the objective nature of buckets and mops, is there any difference? Now, we understand that this is a somewhat more challenging question to answer than we initially thought. Sometimes, it is doubtful whether it is possible or desirable to separate the author's mindset from their works, while in other cases, it seems reasonable to do so in order not to diminish the objective value of the work. What do you think? Is the relevance of the artist relative to the situation we are evaluating? Do the artist's intentions matter? Is the artist's personality relevant? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like. I do this as a side project to try to pay for my college. If you are interested in learning more about philosophy, math, science, or whatever crosses my mind, be sure to follow. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.